you have a practice or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Valuations Podcast, brought to you by Trulytics, the premier transition management and business optimization platform for the wealth management and insurance industries. My name is Mike Langford, and I'm the host of the Valuations Podcast. And this week, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story that happened to me in real life, IRL, as the kids say, and relate it to the sale or acquisition of a wealth management or insurance business. And I think you're going to see the connective tissue here. And my hope is that it helps you gain a better picture of what it means to be prepared for selling or buying a business and making sure that that process, the deal, goes through smoothly. And everybody's happy at the end. So earlier this week, I had the amazing pleasure, and I say that as sarcastically as I can think of saying it, of serving on a jury. Now, it is a civic duty that I took very seriously. Obviously, I didn't have a choice either, by the way, but I do take it seriously. I was called to jury duty. You go to the room with 36 people, and normally when you call to jury duty, they say, thank you, go home. We've chosen our jury. I was one of the 6 people that was asked to not go home. You, sir. It's a bad sign when they tell you, hey, the people sitting in the first 2 rows are in what we call the splash zone, meaning you're most likely to be called. We've already looked at your profile. We think you're probably fit what we're looking for in a juror. And I was definitely in the first 2 rows. So I was in the splash zone, and I got hit by the full brunt of the splash. I was selected to serve on a jury for a criminal case. It was a criminal assault case, which, very stressful, as you might imagine, right? So you're weighing somebody's fate in your hands. And of course, you're hoping you get it right with your fellow jurors. The trial lasted 2 days. And then we had, a couple of hours of deliberation there until we reached a verdict. And so luckily, I would say luckily, in the end, we decided that the defendant was not guilty. Now, what it came down to for us is what I want to discuss with you today as it relates to business transactions for the wealth management or insurance business. And that is reasonable doubt. So in the American criminal justice system, you should presume someone is innocent. So in our case, the parallel is presume it's a no deal, right? I guess. Or presume you have a deal unless, let me rephrase that. You're presumed innocent until proven guilty, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt. There can be no reasonable doubt to the person's guilt if you're going to find them guilty. So in the case of your business deal, if you're selling your business or buying a business, you should get to a point you should feel like, we're going to do this unless I have a reasonable doubt that I'm not going to do this, right? And so you're making sure, you're going through the process, making sure you eliminate doubts, because look, there's always a risk in acquiring or selling a business. But if you've done your due diligence, you should feel as though you have no reasonable doubts as to whether you should move forward and close the deal. If you're finding yourself on the 1 yard line there, to use a sports metaphor, we're ready to go. We're going to sign the contracts tomorrow. If you have some nagging doubts about, well, I'm not sure how solid these client relationships are. Like, will the revenue stream continue as we thought it would be? Or I'm not sure how strong the team is there. They do have 5 advisors in that office, but I'm getting a feeling that maybe after we close this deal, some of them might start looking for new jobs. And if they leave, they might take their clients with them and all that type of stuff. If you start having those kind of doubts in your head, chances are you're not going to go through with the acquisition, right? I wouldn't, right? So if you're thinking of selling your business, you want to make sure that you do your best to eliminate any reasonable doubt that the buyer might have. Okay. So in the trial, we were presented with a lot of evidence. And think about your business transaction. You're going to be presenting a lot of evidence to the buyer. And frankly, as a seller, you're going to be looking for a lot of evidence from the buyer that they're a qualified buyer, that they're a suitable and reputable and trustworthy steward for your clients. And if you have employees, for your employees to go work for that person or that team, right? So there's a lot of things that you're looking for. You're looking for evidence that this is a good deal. Uh, in our case, in the trial, some of the evidence was physical, and some of the evidence was oral testimony, whether that be from the defendant and the plaintiff. Some of it was digital in the forms of email and texts and photographs, if you will, and some of it was from expert witnesses. And you're going to have some of that too, right? So you're going to have firsthand testimony or conversations with the seller or the buyer, with their team. You may even be allowed, if you get closer to the end time for transaction, be able to talk to key clients to make sure that they're comfortable coming over before you sign a check, right? You may be looking at physical evidence. If you're acquiring a business that has an office, you might be going to look at that office and say, does this meet what we're looking, the image that we want to project at this firm? Am I going to have to put some work into this? You're going to look at just for some telltale signs that everything's going well, so that the ship is being run reasonably well, and it's not going to be too much work to get everything ship shape, if you will. You're going to look at some of the digital evidence. You're going to want to know what's going on at this firm here, right? How do they conduct themselves? Do they have good records? So I put together a little bit of a list here of things that I'm thinking of that I would want to do to remove reasonable doubt and make that the buyer feel like we're good to go, right? So one thing that, kind of to back up a little bit is after the verdict was read, the not guilty verdict was read, the judge asked us, the members of the jury, if we would spend another 20 minutes or so back in the juror's room with the attorneys, both the prosecuting attorneys and the defense attorneys, to give them feedback so they could ask us questions about what they did well and what they didn't do well. And it was very, very helpful and informative for them, but also for us, right? Because we had questions about things and they could answer them to the best of their abilities. There's certain things they can't divulge, but they really led with, what could we do? What could we have done better? And some of the things that we thought they could have done better, I think, are helpful for you as you approach potentially selling or acquiring a business. So number one, ask yourself what you need to know to feel comfortable pulling the trigger on buying a business. So pretend if you're the seller and you're thinking about selling your business, ask yourself, what would you need to see to feel comfortable to buy a business, right? You know some of the questions you're going to have. You're not going to walk into this blind. Ask yourself, what do I need to know in order for me to buy a business, to take on other clients, to take on other employees, to acquire an office and have all the responsibilities that go along with that other business? What would I want to know before I do that? Then ask yourself, what am I missing? Look at the evidence of the valuation of the business, of your business as you think it is, and then say, what's missing here? What do I think I need to have in order to present a good case and convince either an individual buyer or a group of buyers? Remember, you might be selling to multiple people. If it's a larger firm, they may have a board of directors that's going to approve it. You may have several executives that are going to, or partners that may want to review things. What are you going to want to have and what holes you need to fill before you present to those people to make sure that they feel comfortable moving forward? One of the things that was really, really clear in the trial was each side was trying to paint a narrative, right? Well, in order to paint that narrative, you have to have some verifiable facts in there if you want the narrative to be easily followed, right? It can't just be a story. Oh, well, we've got a really good business here. We've got, $300 million AUM, and, most of our clients have been with us for, more than 5 years, and the average client has $1 million of AUM with us. You want to have some verifiable stuff, and you want it to be relatively easily verifiable, right? Personally, I would start with some, easy to review records, right? That kind of paint a good picture. Like as an example, your Trulytics evaluation. Do that. There's a whole lot of data in there, right? That you can present to somebody to start the narrative. Like, look, business is worth this based on our evaluation and our. Here are some of the things we check the boxes where we're really, really strong. And now I'm going to present to you some supporting evidence for each of these really key strengths that make this business so strong and so valuable, right? That can help you paint that picture. Um, One of the things that I thought would be really, really helpful, and this also comes from the trial, is document relationships that you have with your clients, right? This was a classic case of he said, she said type of court case. Uh, Such that this test, you have to weigh the trustworthiness, if you will, believability of each person's story. Well, in this case, when I think about relationships, it is, hey, look, I've got to know the relationships before I walk in and take over these clients. They're not just numbers. They're not just assets. These are real human beings who have quirks, who have dreams, who have preferences for the way they like to be dealt with, right? Some people might want the white glove treatment. Some people might, bristle at too much pomp and circumstances when you talk to them. Some people might want you to come visit them at their office. Some people might like coming to the office and sitting down across the desk in your environment and so forth. There's lots of things that are going on there with each individual client. So I would want to have a good understanding of those relationships and like a dossier, if you will, in the CRM or in print version if you need to. But that would be helpful, right? Are these clients going to move over and stay? How can I cement the relationships with those clients? I'd want to provide a clear outline of your investment process so the new advisor can either follow it with ease or map it to so that it can transition over to their own investment process, right? So if you've got model portfolios and they look a certain way, the other new advisor, the acquiring team, may look at it and go, look, we have model portfolios. They're a little bit different. So can you outline yours really easily so that we can move everything over gradually and it doesn't disrupt the client relationship? We don't want to lose clients because during the transition, things went awry, right? Because remember, acquiring a business is expensive and it's risky. Anything you can do to alleviate the integration costs and the time that it takes, that reduces risk and removes doubt from the buyer's mind, right? That, oh, this is going to be a little smoother, because the notion that this could be just nightmarishly time consuming and might take 2 years to fully finish the integration and moving these clients over, that's doubt, right? Like, is it worth it? I have a reasonable doubt of getting through this. So you want to alleviate that. Uh, you would also want to talk to experts, just like the defense and the prosecutors brought in experts to talk to us. You can go look to experts to gain an understanding of what causes deals to fall through. We have such an expert on staff with Carla McCabe at Trulytics, but you could also talk to other people that you know, advisors that have sold their business, advisors who have acquired businesses, and ask them about some of the things that gave them pause or caused them to pull out of a deal. Like, chances are an acquiring advisor or business may have acquired multiple over time. Ask them, what's gone wrong? Like, what's caused you to pull out of deals or whatever in the past? So that could be very, very helpful to you. So if you know what can make a deal go haywire, you can avoid that problem, right? So in the end, like I said, you really want to make sure that your clients are in good hands, of course, and you want to make sure that the deal moves quickly, right? So make sure you have a solid case and that you can, you've thought through things from the other person's perspective. And that was the other really interesting thing about that post trial, post verdict discussion with the attorneys. They really wanted to know, like, from each perspective, like, what they were missing. So in our case, when we found the defendant not guilty, there were some things we thought very easy to pull together. There's my Boston accent for you. You got it together. How you like that? Those are very easy to acquire, especially when you have subpoena power, which which a prosecutor has, there was some easy data to get, like phone records and so forth, that they didn't present. And if they don't present the evidence, we can't consider them. And that's something to keep in mind. If you don't present the case, the buyer can't consider it. You're trying to present a strong case of why they should buy this business and why they should pay you a premium, hopefully, for this business. So you want to make sure that you go through your story and then get some really easily accessible things that you can verify, that you sink your teeth into. Don't drown them in paperwork either, right? One of my early jobs, I worked for the CFO of State Street, and he had a saying. He said, "Don't delegate the analysis up to me. Don't make me go through a crap ton of paperwork to figure out the answer. Provide the support, but you should tell me, what does this analysis say?" So in the case of you presenting your business for another advisor or another group to buy, present the narrative. This is why we think this is valuable. This is why we think you should pay this much. This is why we think our clients are really great and they're going to stay with you, and then provide some support for that. Does that make sense? Well, hopefully it does. Okay. Well, I hope you're having a wonderful week. I know I am. I'm very relieved to have been done with jury duty. It was quite the experience. I'm thrilled that I don't think I can be called for quite some time. So kind of once you serve on a jury, I think you're kind of off the hook for a little while. Or maybe I'm in a database that says this guy was awesome. Hopefully that's not the case. But anyway, as always, I really do appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you do like and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. And share it with a friend. Let somebody know, like, hey, this podcast is pretty good. That Mike Langford guy, really cool to listen to. And that Truelytics company, they've got it going on. So you want to make sure that you get that podcast, the Valuations podcast, in your regular rotation. As always, if you have some questions for us or topics you'd like to see us cover or guests you'd like to see on the show, hit us up at valuations@truelytics.com. I actually have a Truelytics email now. You can also hit me up at mike@truelytics.com if you want to, and I will respond to your questions or solicitation for topics or guests. And also, make sure you like and follow Truelytics on the socials. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and the Facebook. We're also on YouTube too, I think. So follow us all those places, okay? I hope you're having a great day, and we'll talk to you next time on the Valuations Podcast. See ya. Bye.